So welcome, my name is Marina Thomas, and today we're going to talk about the future of membership sales, and I'm lucky enough to be joined by Charlie and by Simon Parish, so Charlie Horton and Simon Parish, and the first thing I'm going to ask them to do is to introduce themselves, and then I will do the same. So if I can have your attention, I'm going to hand over to Charlie. Charlie, just introduce yourself, please, sir.
Hey, I'm Charlie. I'm the head of growth at Fitness Marketing Agency. We work with just under 400 gyms, from kind of low-cost open gym models to small group training providers, to even higher end there as well. And we mainly help with lead generation, also sales consultancy, but ultimately just helping you to get more leads, more sign-ups, and more growth into the business. And super excited to share some insights of what's working now, but also what's going to be working in the future as well.
Thanks, Charlie. And Simon, if you could introduce yourself, that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So I'm Simon Parish. I'm the head of operations at Teamer Club Support Centre. Prior to that, I worked with Anytime Fitness for 10 years, and immediately prior to that, 5 years at Fitness First. So I've personally sold many thousands of memberships and have overseen many more thousands on top of that. So also keen to share some insights and my views on where this is all going and what the future holds for gym membership sales.
Thank you. And my name's Marina Thomas. So my background is I was an operator for many years, and I've now got my own training company delivering sales training across the industry, mainly in the UK but outside as well. And the idea is that we help you to sell as many memberships as possible. So it's a bit of a silly question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Who is that of interest here to, just in the room? January 2024, focusing on the end of this year, would having more leads, more memberships be something that would be really good for you? Yeah? Few nods, a little wave at the back. Thank you. Just checking that you're in the right session there, that's all. Okay, so I'm going to move over and sit with Charlie and Simon in a second, but we're going to start off with, I'm hoping, what is going to be really useful to you, and that's starting at that beginning of the cycle. And I just want to ask the question, what's the most effective way to market right now? If we can sort of give some advice to the people in the room so they can take that away, what would you say the most effective way to market right now, focusing on the end of this year as well?
So there's two things to really focus on in the December period, and one is maximizing sales as to the best of your ability, but then also to build the runway for a really successful January, February, and 2024. So a few things in terms of practical takeaways of what you can do in December right now is, this is what we get all our clients to do. It's just a very simple but Christmas card referral campaign where every single member receives a card. There's a photo of the team on the front of the card, and inside that is a referral incentive that is presented as a gift that can be used as a stocking filler. Now, this is a tactic that's not going to be used by Pure Gym, by JD Gyms or David Lloyd's or anybody. They can't do it because they've got so many members. But as a small local community-based business, this is a strategy that you can do and really add that personalized touch and really utilize the fact that you are a small business and you have community. Not only that, it will get you a shed loads of referrals into the new year. Another thing that our clients do that work really, really well is, did anyone here do a Black Friday offer this month? Great. Well, if you did, or if you didn't, it's not too late to be able to utilize offers to your internal membership base, your old members, and also your leads. Towards Christmas time, I would email your clients and say, hey, we've got an opportunity for a limited amount of members to pay in full to be able to commit and lock yourself in for results in 2024, and you can get a full year's of membership for this cost, which is a percentage off of a certain membership type. So that's what I'd recommend to do in terms of getting more cash into the business inside December as well. I'm going to give one more point and then pass over because I don't want to go for too long. And then the last thing is just like content based around Christmas. So a couple of things that our clients are doing that are working really well is like these Vox Pop style videos where you are interviewing members in the gym or clients in the gym, asking questions and just having some fun with the members in the gym. So for instance, like just asking something simple like, hey, what's your favorite thing about Christmas? And like some members would be like, oh, I love, the quality streets, or like the amount, or having a drink at 9 a.m. and everyone's having a bit of a laugh, right? And people love to see that relatability. Or how to stay motivated in December, or offers for a waiting list for January as well. So those are kind of 3 quick things you can do in December that are all proven to work pretty well. But yeah, I'll pass it over to you.
So I had a couple of ideas for December marketing, but I think it's also important to recognize that December is a relatively unique opportunity to reflect on the year that's gone, what's worked, what hasn't worked, what strategies would I want to bring forward into 2024, where should I be investing, and how should I shape my marketing accordingly. But I'll start with the December ideas. So something I would always do in my clubs, and again, spent 10 years as an operator. It's a little bit corny, but I really like the 12 exercises of Christmas. So, 12 burpees, 11 star jumps, 10 press-ups, 9 chin-ups, whichever. Obviously, you can run that as a bit of a campaign. You add to it each day. It's on Instagram, it's on Facebook, all the rest of it. And it's a nice way of demonstrating your expertise as operators, but also it's quite engaging and it's obviously very seasonal and appropriate. And then the other thing is an advent calendar. So every day of the month you open the door and there's something behind it. It could be an offer, could be refer a friend, could be a piece of equipment that you want to highlight, anything that you think is going to attract people to your business. But then the other thing, of course, and final thing for me in December specifically is Christmas party. And look, if you don't have the resource to do anything large, you can get a bottle of Prosecco and a few mince pies, get the marketing out there around that. I just think that Christmas is such a universally applicable event to piggyback on, that it makes total sense to engage with that. But I do think that the last 10 days of December is a really unique opportunity to work on your business, not just work in your business. And I would be looking at what worked for us this year, what didn't work for us this year, and how can we shape that? What insights can we take from the work we've done, the memberships that we've acquired, what are the common themes, and how can we adopt that into our marketing approach for 2024?
Thanks, Simon. It would be really lovely to make this a little bit interactive as well. So feel free to ask questions as and when. We'll have an opportunity to ask questions at the end. But it would also be really lovely to be able to share any ideas. If anyone's had any, we're December tomorrow. Oh my God. So have you got anything that you can say, right, this is what we've got planned, this is what has been useful for us, this is what inspires our staff, or this is what hits the customers. So if you have anything like that you'd want to share, that would be absolutely awesome. Yeah, so just raise your hand or give me a little wink, see if my eyesight works that far across the room. So what about January then? We're there already, aren't we? I suppose it's too late now to actually be doing too much marketing in December for January. But is there anything specific that you'd be advising for January, even if it's not this year and it's something that we take forward? Charlie, over to you first. There you go.
Yeah, and then this kind of feeds back into December, and there's great opportunity to build a wait list for January or get sign-ups for people to start inside January. So a lot of people love to, commit and have that I'll start on Monday mentality. So if you build and this is what we do for our clients, a wait list funnel where you can email your old leads, your old members, and just say, hey, do you want to lock down your results for 2024? You can sign up now. You don't have to do anything, but now you can enjoy Christmas, you can eat everything you want, drink everything you want, and know that you've committed to taking a healthy step in 2024. So getting those pre-sales in for January is a really, really great strategy as well. And then in terms of moving into the new year, before you decide what your marketing campaign is going to be, what channels you're going to use, or what you're actually going to do, and you mentioned this a little bit earlier, is really self-assess of how the business has gone this year. So, look at where you are right now in terms of membership numbers. What are the scores on the doors? And then what you should do is you should really figure out how many leads you generated in the last 12 months and get an average of how many leads you generate every single month. And then figure out what has the conversion rate been of those leads to sale every single month, and get those metrics there. And now you need to ask yourself the question, right, I've got X amount of members, I got this amount of leads, and this was my conversion rate. How many members do I want in 12 months' time? And then based on that number, you need to figure out either how many more leads you need every single month, or how much you need to increase your conversion rate from lead to sale. Because actually, for a lot of people listening here, you may not need more leads or inquiries in your business. You may just need a refined sales process that increases your conversion rate. But to really have that self-assessment of how many members do we have, how many leads did we get, how many sign-ups did we get, what's the conversion rate, then you know what you need to do next year to get to the desired destination. So really do the work and figure out those numbers. Don't just pluck a number out of thin air and go, we're going to go for it. Like really look at where you want to go in terms of the metrics. And then, and again, I'll pass it on over to you. I don't want to go on for too long. And then, once you know where you want to go, then you need to analyze the marketing channels you've been using to get you to this current destination and really assess each one. And have you been utilizing those channels as much as you could have been? Are there areas for improvement? And if the answer is no, then you can start to go, right, this is what I've got from this outcome, and now I need to add a new platform into the mix. And that could be Facebook ads, that could be Google ads, that could be refined referral systems, whatever it is. But in summary, analyze your performance and then assess how much more you need to be able to get to your desired destinations. That's kind of the biggest takeaway that I would give you. And then in terms of obviously your New Year marketing, the typical New Year campaign, I would just look to smash Facebook ads out there. But it all depends on your current desired situation. Anyone that doesn't run ads, they're the most effective paid platform in 2023, and it's going to be the same in 2024.
So I think a couple of things I would add. January is obviously the golden start to the golden quarter. It's a very, very competitive marketplace, particularly online at that time. So I think what's really important is having a campaign that can cut through the noise. And I think as independent operators, one of our big advantages over our competitors is the intimacy we have with our membership bases. So I would be utilizing that in January, and I would be doing that specifically through New Year's resolutions. This year I will. So a very successful campaign I ran in one of my clubs a couple of years ago was exactly that. We had a whiteboard, this year I will, and we spoke to as many members as possible. They held up their New Year's resolution, and it made for quite a powerful piece of marketing because, again, we didn't have the biggest advertising spend. And again, the bidding war in January is crazy and it's difficult to win that. But if your content and your relevancy can be sky high and it's not generic advert that every single site up and down the country is using, you can leverage that to your advantage. And the other thing I would say about January, and I think this is a common mistake, if it's okay for me to say that, is people are too invested in acquiring new prospects and are often neglecting the prospects from the previous year because, of course, there will be people who didn't join in September that will join in January. So I would be targeting ex-members. I would be targeting what I would refer to as a blown-out prospect, so a prospect you're no longer communicating with, because you may find that you have thousands of prospects who didn't join last year, and the conventional mindset would be to move on from them. But my recommendation would be to revisit those, particularly in the first week of January, and have a strategy based around that as well.
Thanks, Simon. Thanks, Charlie. So I just, it would be really interesting to know for you, what are your greatest lead generators? It'd be great to have that thrown in the mix. So we've mentioned a few different things there. We've mentioned different, obviously, we know social media is really powerful, but what works best for you? What is working at its optimum for you at the moment? You mentioned Facebook, didn't you? I know that a lot of my clients, I work in the private sector, I work with independent gyms, I work with a huge amount of local authorities, both trust and through council. And it is different from sector to sector and demographic to demographic. So what works best for you guys? Anyone want to chip that in with us at the moment? Anyone want to share that with us? What about this table at the front? What's your favourite source of leads?
So outreach that we do, we try and team up sort of some of the community stuff. So we try and link in with like local supermarkets, try and set up stalls in sort of the front of house and reception there. It's also just trying to be a part of the community. So using the main community boards, community links, again, that leads back to social media. And then it's, just linking in with any sort of event you can link onto. We also do like the warm-ups for races, the running in the parks and all that sort of stuff. They're always good for leads. And then Facebook probably being our best one.
And what's your name, sir?
Aaron.
Aaron. So you mentioned Facebook being your best one. Yeah. So a little bit of feedback that I've had from my clients before, obviously they're doing it all the time, but a lot of the feedback has been Google Ads has been working really well for them as well. Is that a positive result for people in the room? Yes or no? Just curious to hear from an independent gym perspective. Any other information from you guys on the social media element? What are your thoughts on that with regard to the best result on leads? Charlie?
So just in terms of, you mentioned Google Ads, they do work. Cost per lead is typically higher though. And also with Google Ads and just general SEO, you can't predict how many people are going to be searching for a certain thing on Google. So you don't have control of traffic and clicks and conversions, even though it does work, but the costs are higher there. So as a scale, like Google Ads are great, but as a, you don't necessarily know how much traffic and volume you're going to get from it, whereas a Facebook ad, you know how much reach you're going to get if you put 50 quid into the machine and how many clicks you're going to get and how many conversions from it. So that's why I believe it's the greatest scaling tool. But what you highlighted there was great, right? Because and this is what all people should look to do, is to build an ecosystem out in their marketing, a machine that has different touch points for different prospects at different stages of their life cycle. So, some people may have never heard of the gym, but they went to that run and they saw you guys at the warm-up, and then they saw you at the supermarket, and then they saw a Facebook ad, and they had all these different touch points from different elements. So, and that's a really, really great lesson there, because if you're here and you just do ads, that's great, ads are good, but you should look to do something else and increase another channel. If you're just doing outreach, then where else can you show up in their experience and look to provide value into the marketplace?
Yeah, I mean, my personal experience of digital marketing is, Charlie's absolutely correct there to say that Google Ads is quite an expensive route. You don't get the same level of insight, you don't get the same level of control. With Facebook and Instagram, so the local community that you guys bring to the table, that absolutely should be leveraged in your marketing. So I would look to dual purpose. So if you are doing the warm-up at the local 5K, obviously getting prospects on the day is fantastic. But if you can capture some videos or images and include that in your digital marketing, because I think that the challenge of the digital market is the fact that, again, this is my personal experience, maybe you guys have different experience, but my experience is that it's very hard to be the highest bidder. Pure Gym outbid me constantly. And that was always a frustration of mine with our digital marketing. But if I can make the ads relevant to me and relevant to my targeted audience, the relevancy will outweigh the relatively low budget, if that makes sense. So I think they absolutely do need to be utilized, but recognizing that this isn't just a machine you can throw money in and get a linear outcome from is quite important. And the content and what it says about you as a brand and you as a business is very, very important. So the nice thing about doing the local community events, I should have mentioned Christmas markets for December, that's a really good one. But the beauty of those events is you can prospect on the day and you're creating excellent content for your social media channels.
Thanks, Simon. So one of the advantages of having people like Simon and Charlie here and myself here is that we're working with so many different operators. So we can see that we're using experience and advice, and then we're seeing the different results from those different areas, and whether that be independent gym versus independent gym or across sectors. What do you think the things that trip our clients up are most of all with regard to once leads are coming in and then utilising? You mentioned conversion, Charlie. So what are the things, if we were to say to watch out for, the things to avoid and be mindful of? Charlie, I'll come to you first.
I slightly touched on this earlier, but the majority of gyms that we initially work with when they first come into FMA aren't utilising the leads that they've already got nearly as much as they should be. The lead will come in and they will attempt to reach out to that person. Maybe they text them, they call them a couple of times, and then because there's no response, they are a dead lead, and maybe they're on an email list and but that's barely actually used, that just kind of sits to dust. But essentially, the leads that have come in and that have not engaged are seen to be dead and they have no value. When actually, when you look at the psychology of a consumer, 14% of the UK population have a gym membership. which is the minority, right? Yet 7 out of 10 people want to be healthier and fitter. So there's a disconnect there. And what's happening is the gym industry, from a marketing perspective, isn't speaking to the wants and the needs of that majority, because most people are scared to walk into a gym. Most people are nervous. Most people are thinking, what if I'm the biggest, the sweatiest, I look silly in my gym gear, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm going to be intimidated by all the gym bunnies and gym rats that are already in the gym. So they may opt in, and that might be a big step for them, just entering their email address. And that sounds silly to you and me who live and breathe the gym, right? But to that person, that could be a big step. And then all those hesitations come in, and then they leave it alone, and they decide, you know what, I'm not going to do it. Maybe next year, maybe next month, whatever it is. However, if you have the correct systems to nurture leads for a long period of time, you will start to reap the reward. And I was speaking to Nick at the back, actually, and some gyms may have an automated email sequence that sends 6 to 10 emails out, which is great. But are you actually writing a relevant email 1 to 3 times a week and sending it out to your list? And for most people, the answer is no. And it works so well. And it's such an old strategy. It's not new. It's not the sexy thing, but it is the most effective thing. And what I find with most gyms is that they are lacking the basic marketing principles, and they want to find the new shiny thing. So to kind of sum up what I'm saying, and then I'll pass over, you should look to invest more in your long-term marketing and sales systems to follow up with the current leads you've got, to be able to have a machine that is able to get leads in today, tomorrow, in 3 months' time, in 6 months' time, in 12 months' time, and even 2 years' time. And that's when you'll have a machine that is giving you leads and customers every single day for the long haul.
Yeah, I mean, obviously refining your process is critical, and I think it's impossible for me to do this without plugging my own business a little bit. But we created Teamer to solve a problem with the clubs that we had, and one of the most common problems in prospect management was the speed in which we were following up with inquiries. So someone might be making an inquiry via an Instagram direct message at 12 o'clock, and we're calling them at 6 o'clock in the evening. By that time, they've already joined a competitor. The marketplace is becoming incredibly demanding in terms of rapid response, and these people are inquiring in several places at once because it's so easy to make that inquiry now. It's not like back in the day you had to literally go to the gym to make an inquiry. So prospecting is becoming easier, conversion is becoming harder because of the demands of the consumer, but also the sales structure that you need to adhere to is extremely difficult when you also have a site to operate. So a lot of the clients that I'm working with now, when I'm looking at their sales process, I'm seeing prospects inquired at 12 o'clock, we called them at 5, and this is Monday, and then we didn't call them again until Thursday, and I'm looking at it and saying, well, it's too late, forget it, you're not going to get a sale there, and you are going to call them 3 more times this month, and you're going to get frustrated. So I do think there's a sequence that we put into our clients, and we obviously help them manage that sequence with our own resourcing. But that sequence can be different for different clients. It depends on your demographics. One of the biggest paradigm shifts has been the prevalence of working from home. So when I was taught to sell back in the day, you did your calls at lunchtime and immediately after work, because that's when people were either on their lunch break or traveling home from work. You can get hold of them. Of course, that's all changed now, because so many people do work from home. So many people do have flexible hours. And one of the things one of the things I advise our clients that do their own sales calls, firstly I advise them to get us to do it, but if they're going to do it themselves, you need to have a strategy that is relevant to the prospect source. So a really obvious example of this is the time that they inquire, that is likely to indicate a time in which they're available. So if they're making an inquiry at 10:30 in the morning, next time you call them, do it at 10:30 in the morning, because odds are that's when they happen to be, coming back from the school run or whatever it may be. So certainly smartening up your strategy can be important, and selfish plug here, if your resource isn't there to be able to do that, well, Teamer are here.
So it sounds really simple, doesn't it? With leads, the biggest problems that people have is that we don't respond to them. We don't respond to them quick enough. We don't respond to them in the right way and often enough. And that's what I'm seeing out there. We might do, everybody responds to the first call, we hope, and then by the 5th time, what percentage responds to? What is your success rate around how many times you would be asking somebody to expect them to then blow out? With regard to success, would you get it first, second, third? When would you start getting fed up? Any thoughts on that? Or when would you stop asking your team to continue calling those leads back? Any thoughts on that? Could you just remind everyone, I saw you talk this morning, but if you could just remind everyone who you are.
Yeah, I'm Nathan Gosling, owner of NR Health Clubs. Made some great points there between you, and I think very relevant to some of the situations we find ourselves in with following up leads. And that's definitely something we've been talking to a few people today about, how we streamline that process, and also who's doing the calls, because we were speaking about social media as a platform for us to generate 7-day pass leads, which works really, really well from Facebook. But then the process after that, we send them into a group to our teams at each club. And then after that, it's a little bit, not out of our control, but we don't know exactly who's going to be on shift to pick them calls up at that time. And then you've got to train individual staff to do the calls. So we could have an apprentice potentially making a sales call. So then, we're finding that depending on who do the calls to how successful they are, is where we're at currently. So we need to refine our process. But sorry, the reason I had the mic is because I wanted just to flip back quickly to the social media and the Google ads. With our Facebook, we get the 7-day leads, and we can create the leads quite quickly, and the information's there. But with Google ads, which I oversee the Google ads, I'm a little bit confused on whether I should be generating a lead generating form or directing them directly to sign up. And is there any information on that? Sorry.
So, this is something that I've played with over the years. Look, it depends on your membership model. I don't know what your membership model is, but with our clubs, we were doing 12-month subscriptions and had very, very limited success with Google driving directly towards a joining platform. The conversion rate was very, very poor. My advice would be to create a bespoke landing page that captures the data that you want to capture, and have Google direct toward that. Because one of the advantages that Facebook has over Google is Facebook can do that for you. You can generate a lead form via Facebook. Google is more directing traffic. So my advice would be to create a bespoke landing page. There's lots of platforms that you can do that with. Again, it's something we could help you with if you wanted. And the idea there is a Google ad is a very snappy, short, not a lot of content. If you write an essay on a Google ad, no one's going to read it. The idea is you're grabbing the attention of someone quickly and then directing to something that's a bit more informative, captures the data you want to capture. And also with a bespoke landing page, you then do get those insights that Facebook would provide, because you know that Google is the only thing directing to that landing page. It's not something that people can find organically. Therefore, if I get 100 prospects from that landing page, I know that's directly from Google. And you can set up a pixel as well that you attach to your Google Analytics, and then you really will get some insights. So it can be done, but my advice is not to direct towards a joining page, because don't get me wrong, we did a 1-month membership for 30 quid, and let's see if that works. Worked really well from a relative to the conversions of the other memberships. But my advice would be to use it for data capture, not for driving sales.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm a big believer of data capture before any sign up. So even if you get a sign up on a website, there should be an option where they enter their data first and then go to sign up, because there's a lot of people that will go to a buy now page and then just shoot off. However, the same people that will buy will also enter their data beforehand. However, when you do a data capture, you enter their data, then those people that will bounce, you've now got their data, and now you can do a long-term follow-up. So I would, in any scenario, always look to do data capture before you ask for the sale, because the people that will buy are going to go through those hoops regardless of how you have those in place. So your website should be a lead generation site first and foremost, and then it goes to a buy now situation. But in terms of Facebook ads versus Google ads, to talk about the psychology of the buyer, with a Facebook ad, we interrupt their experience and we capture their attention, and we've got a finite amount of time before that person bounces. So a landing page typically has limited information, and it squeezes people for an opt-in. Whereas when you go to a website, there's much more information about us, meet the team, blog, all of these situations. And a website that is designed for lead generation works for the format of Google, because when people go on Google, they are in browser mode, as in they are coming to you, they are perusing the options, and they want to be able to see more information. Whereas if you ran a Facebook ad that had all that information of a website page, then you're going to lose a bunch of traffic, because they're going to go here, there, and everywhere, apart from the place you want them to opt in, which is the opt-in section. So you should have a website for Google Ads, but it should be designed for lead generation, as you said. And then with a Facebook ad, it should be a much more limited page, whether it could be a lead form or just a funnel, but it's more benefit driven, limited information that is targeted to specifically get the data opt-in, and then you move to the next step.
Thanks, Charlie. Thank you. So it's Nathan, isn't it? You also mentioned that you're getting these leads coming through, some of which are 7-day passes, which are a phenomenal lead source, whether it be 2-day, 3-day, or 7-day, phenomenal lead source. But depending on your staff and what you've got available, it can also be a drain, can't it? Depending on your resources. So what I'd like to talk about there is the danger of them going somewhere where they're not being masterfully dealt with. So if we've got the list of leads, and I'm sure you know this already, I know that you just by the fact that you've brought that up, but those leads are what we're searching for. We're spending all that time, all that money, all that energy, targeting all of those things. And then that lead comes in, and we either sometimes don't even call them back because you've done the right thing, but that person may not be as motivated as you. Or when we make that call, we're just ticking the list off. Done. I've done my job. I've got 20 calls to do today. I know that's one of the metrics that Anytime Fitness use. And then you've lost all those potentials and you just want to pull your hair out. Whereas if you picked up the call, and I'm not suggesting you do, or your team picked up the call, or one of us, the chances of us converting that for them to come and see our product is really high. So have you got a solution to that? Would you want us to give you some advice on what you should do around that? Because I'm sure that that's just blowing your brains out, isn't it, when that happens?
I think the idea is potentially bringing the sales internally to a single individual to manage the leads for us. But again, we then lose that. We want customers to walk into our clubs and have already try and build a reputation with who they're going to meet. So we wanted to try and keep that customer journey, seamless, ideally, rather than dealing with somebody at an office, i.e. me, doing the calls, generating them in, and then they turn up and I'm not there for them to meet. So that's the reason we've left it within the clubs. But as we have grown, we are now finding that maybe not is the best solution, and potentially having somebody in the office who's responsible for that would definitely convert better, but would it interrupt other parts of the sale?
I mean, we've all got solutions to this, and it's a delicate thing because it depends on, is everything moving in the right way? I mean, one of those things is you do exactly what you do. You want that experience that you're also developing your team. You're not relying on one person in your team to come up with that solution, because then what do? Especially with your rollout, you're at 6 clubs now. So if you want to do more, you can't leave it like that. So the first thing, and the obvious thing, because it's what I do, is what is the sales process that you've got in place? And is it simple enough for everybody to follow? Because and that's the next thing that we can actually talk about, is what is the ideal sales process, depending on if it's Anytime Fitness or if it's other independent gyms, whatever that source is. But is it simple enough to follow that the newest person of your team that you're giving those tasks to can do? And then does that mean it's too simple to get everything out that we need to, or can we layer it? So this is your basic. These are the basics that you need to do. But as you get more sophisticated and better, then we can add other elements. But if that person has that, then the chances are we'll get them in, and then they won't be as demotivated, because we know that most of our salespeople only follow up that lead once. But we also know that it takes about 5 contacts to actually get that lead to fruition, and only 80% of our sales team don't do that. So it means we're missing out on that huge amount. So one of the things, if you want to have that, is what's your sales process? Can we simplify it? Are we training them on how to make calls as well, if that's the communication style? And also the email channels, are those templates already written? So there's a massive value proposition or elevator pitch so that someone's got to open it in the same way that your really good social media ads are. Any other suggestions?
Yeah, sure. I would definitely look to move it into one central hub of sales, because you're either going to manage one sales team or 5 or 6 sales teams, and that's very hard to do, right? And you've got to track all these different metrics of performance, or can you just do that all in one and have a real good emphasis on quality control? And then in terms of that seamless experience, if they speak to one person, they meet another person, I personally don't see that as a massive issue. Like if I'm a consumer and I speak to you and I meet someone else, as long as each person, member of the team, does a really good job, I don't think there's an issue with it being one person or 2 people. I think that the issue is that you've got all these different people doing sales, and one person can be shit hot and the other person can be crap, and you're just like, you don't really have a huge amount of control of how good the sales performance is going to be. Whereas if you put it all in one place, you can really just focus on that. So I would probably look to bring it into one. To be honest. And then in terms of the sales process itself, and I think we're going to speak about that a little bit and all these different elements there, and it'd be good to speak about the team as well. A big element that people struggle with is the sort of objection handling. You know, like, I want to think about it, I want to speak to my partner, let me ask the dog, I'll get back to you on Monday, can you send me an email, all these typical objections. So kind of a gift from myself and Fitness Marketing Agency, hopefully it's on this slide here, is we've got this free guide called the 10 most common sales objections in the fitness industry and how to overcome them. And basically we send this to you in the post. There's a wall chart, so if you have an office, you can place it on your wall, and when someone does say, I want to think about it, let me speak to my partner, we'll show you exactly how to overcome that objection. There's also some sheets of paper on there where you can just scan that there, but that will massively help. But yeah, should we go into the sales process? And
unless you wanted to add something to that, Simon.
I'm quite keen to talk about sales process.
Okay, so what we wanted to discuss was we've looked at that beginning part, but what about the actual sales process? And this is the future of fitness sales. Are you trying to get? Oh, sorry.
I've just got one more question following on from what Nathan was saying, and
would you
touched
introduce
on
yourself as well? I saw you
Sorry,
this morning.
it's Sharon from Anytime Fitness
okay,
in
lovely.
Swaddling Co. I wanted to ask, because I've had so many different people have different views about how many times should we contact a prospect before we blow them out. Some people say 3. I personally think maybe 8, but it goes back. I've got a massive database which I inherited, I keep hold of, but some people have a view that I should get rid of it. You know, it's that. What would your thoughts be on that?
It's really challenging, isn't it, to lose any prospects?
Yes.
We never want to lose any of them,
Yeah.
but also it can take up the time of our team. So I would say definitely you need to do 3.
Okay.
And it's the important thing is the timing of when you respond, and whether it is response to a lead or whether it is response to somebody who's come in, had a look around, and has decided not to join. So I would be looking at when you've made that agreement to do the lead straight away. You contact them immediately. I mean, I don't know what anybody else feels there. I know that sometimes that's not possible, but immediate. The quicker you get there, the higher percentage result you're going to get, because that person is hot.
Yeah.
And that's not just for membership sales, that's for anything. So I would hope that if any of you contact me and ask me to do anything, I'll be responding within a very short period of time. She says that now. We'll see. Test me. But if you're actually showing somebody round and they're in the building, it will depend on what you've agreed with them and your intuition. But within 48 hours, I would then be hoping that you would communicate with them at least 3 times within a reasonable time period, because they're going to be cooling off after a 10-day period. And the success level on that, Sharon, will be how sophisticated your team is to when they've done that needs analysis and they've done that value proposition, and they can personalize that call. So the stats tell us that you can, it's 5, but also we don't want to drain and deplete your team and your time as well. So sometimes you can just say, you can make sure that you close. Is there a point in us having a conversation and it continuing, and actually qualify that lead?
Yeah.
Marina, do you mind if I...
Yeah, please.
Sorry, this is something that... Sharon... So in Teamer, we have been doing sales calls for about a year now. And for me, finding the optimum number of calls is absolutely paramount to my business. If I don't do enough calls, I don't get a high enough conversion rate. If I do too many calls, I'm overcharging my client. In my experience, 4 is the magic number. Okay? Anything up to 4 is productive. Anything after 4 is not productive. In terms of the volume of work you're putting in versus what you're getting out, I would say 4 contacts within 7 days. And this is really important, and I would emphasize this to everyone in the room. At no point in that contact cycle put the ball in the prospect's court. So what I mean by that is I see so many clubs that I work with who'll do a call and then they'll send a text and send an email, and it's too much, and it also removes the validity of that follow-up call, if that makes sense. So my advice is always 4 calls within 7 days, and then you enter into an automation cycle. But I would also never give up on a prospect. So I advise to my clients that we do quarterly blowout campaigns. So we will look at the objection reasons attached to those blowout reasons, and we will send bespoke templates based on those objections. So if we have 50 people who've objected because they've joined a Pure Gym, then we will send them a "Is your gym too busy?" campaign quarterly. That takes seconds and costs nothing, and we're not giving up on that prospect. But so when I do my reporting, calls per prospect, if it, conditional formatting in Excel, if it's below 4, it's red. If it's above 4, it's red. If it's 4, it's green. So that's something that I can say with a huge amount of authenticity, because I'm looking at thousands and thousands and thousands of calls, thousands and thousands of successful calls, and looking at where the ratios lie, and 4 seems to be the magic number.
So I might say something a little bit different here, but it's not just related to calls. So we optimally, and this may sound extreme, but it works, is 8 touch points in the first 3 days. I'm not saying 8 calls, but 8 touch points, because you've got email, you've got text/WhatsApp, and then you've got the phone call there. Now, if you look in your phone and your apps and your Messenger and your WhatsApp, I've got group chats that I haven't opened. I've got messages from friends from 2 days ago that I haven't got back to. I've got Facebook messages that I haven't replied to. I'm not replying to my friends. Why am I going to reply to you? Do you know what I mean? I mean that in the world is very ADHD at the moment in terms of attention is sparse. And people are just quite flaky. They don't reply, but it doesn't mean that they're not interested. Again, it's been 48 hours since a friend of mine that I've known for years, that I really trust and value as a person, I haven't replied. Some of you might be thinking I'm a shitty person because of that, basically. But the reality is that that's how the consumer is as well. They've all got unreplied messages, WhatsApps, DMs, emails, and if you just do a few attempts, you're not going to actually break through. So in those first 3 days, I would highly encourage to be able to have a system in place for 8 touch points. Now, that's not someone manually doing 8, because you can have technology now that can help assist that process. But I agree in terms of those phone call side of things, but I think you can go even further, basically.
Does that help, Sharon? We've actually given you 3 different answers, and I think
Sharon.
the key there, that actually there is a similarity. Good. Okay. Thank you. The last thing we want to do is confuse, but you have got 3 different solutions and 3 different markets to a certain extent, because it depends on that higher end price point. It depends on the level of intimacy that you have. And that's sort of, I'm very aware of time, so I'm just going to do a check-in with Robert. 5 minutes. Okay. So there's a couple of things I wanted to ask and cover for you. I also want to give you any opportunities to ask any questions, and thanks for the questions that have come up. One of the things I would be really curious to hear from you, but also I'd like to put my 2 pence in, is what you're doing with regard to data capture, and what you're comfortable with and what is working with you. So what's the process? What's actually happening? Because having a process and doing it are 2 very different things, which is one of the biggest challenges I have with developing my clients. And what are you doing around data capture? Are inquiry cards still being used? Are they working? Do you use a digital format? Do you do it just for data capture? Do you do it as a prompt so that you're asking the right questions? And if it is in the sales process, do your teams do it? Lots of questions there. And I'm just wondering if anyone's got any input. Don't worry if you don't, because we'll jump on it and give the answers. But any thoughts? Are you using inquiry cards still? Who's still using them? And are they paper or are they digital? Thanks, Rob.
So we have a couple of different options. Obviously, for the people that are coming and walking into the clubs, we have our tour forms. That way we know each club is delivering the same level of service with the tours, talking about everything we offer, membership types, membership benefits, and then any additionals with the membership as well. They will then either be stored into a folder to start with and put onto our system. They can then go down as hot prospects, which then means at the end of every week we can send out texts, emails, whatever we need to the hot prospects. Obviously online we have the social media messages, which probably the weakest option because, like we've discussed, can be difficult to get back to them. The 7-day passes, again, work really well. But it's something that we're finding that is working very well at the minute is now we've established ourselves and we've got that good reach. Something that's really working is sort of like and share competitions. Hasn't got to be massive, you haven't got to be giving away the world, but if one member is tagging 3 people, it doesn't take long before you've got hundreds of people to then just quickly send a generic message, thank you for entering our competition, you didn't win but you have won a free 7-day pass, contact us here, and that's working really well for us at the minute. But it's just trying to, as Nathan touched on and everyone else so far, is streamline the processes that we have got and making sure it is the right person doing the right things, because we know we're teaching our staff to deliver the tours in the correct way. We know that we're teaching our staff to deliver the phone calls, the follow-up phone calls in the same way. But I know for a fact that my staff at my site, they do get very demoralised, especially this month with being Black Friday. You're calling people and hi, it's Scott from NR Health and Fitness Club, beep, 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 and they've just hung up the phone, whether that's because they're busy or it is the third time that week that you've contacted them, and they'll just mark it as red.
Thank you. I didn't catch your name.
My name's Scott.
Thanks, Scott. Thank you. We've actually got just a couple of minutes before we're going to wind it up. So that went very quickly for us. So apologies if we've overrun. So we haven't had time to go into the depth of the sales process. I'm sure that you all have great sales processes, but if you want some help with any of those, you can contact myself, Charlie, or Simon, and we'll be happy to assist in whatever way we can. But just a quick one to finish on. With regard to the sales process, what would you say is the most important part as far as you're concerned to help people in the room to get their results? I'm going to hand over to Charlie first.
First of all, just, and we've mentioned this before, but the speed in which you contact that lead. I thought that was very good, what you said. What's the best time to call? What's the time they opted in? I thought that's very good. So the speed that you contact your lead is going to be crucial because the goal is conversations. Lead generation is a means to a conversation. And then when you're on that conversation, the most important part of your sales process is the info gathering stage, when you're finding out about them, their goals, their challenges, why they haven't achieved what their goals are, what they've tried in the past. And when you really find out what their problem is, and really find out what their problem is, not just, I want to get a bit fitter and lose a bit of weight, when you find out really how that's been affecting them, that's when a sale is much easier. There's this objection guide that we're offering is great, but in all honesty, I prefer objection prevention rather than objection handling. However, sometimes you do have to overcome objections, but if you can prevent it, and that's always done in the info gathering stage. Also, too many people pitch for too long and talk about themselves too long, but we haven't got enough time, so.
I would 100% echo the sentiment on info gathering, or as I would describe it, needs analysis. But rather than repeat the same thing, I'll then talk about the importance of utilizing that information. One of my daily frustrations in Teamer is that we will book sales appointments for our clients. There'll be lots of notes on the booking. This person wants to lose 3 stone. They're running the marathon in April, etc., etc., etc. Person doesn't join. I call the club and ask for a bit of feedback, and it turns out that there's been a museum tour that's been delivered because the sales consultant hasn't engaged with the needs analysis. It's all well and good gathering information. The same thing as gathering prospects. You can gathering. Look, I don't mean to belittle this, but gathering prospects isn't too challenging. Anyone can gather prospects. Doing a needs analysis, again, very, very important. It would have been my top answer. But it's how you utilize all of this stuff. Do your staff know how to take the information in front of them and apply it to the process? You know, is it a personalized tour? Is it a personalized overcoming of objections? So having staff on the ground that are capable of taking the information that's relevant and applying it to the process, I think that's one of the most important parts.
Okay, and I'll just finish now because I'm aware we've overrun. I agree with both of those. The needs analysis to me is what it's all about, and it's the bit that people don't do. So if you know your teams are doing it awesome, please check, because you may get a very big shock, and that's why I would recommend always shadowing and getting other people to mystery shop, even if you're not paying for that on reports. But a secondary is, I can't say needs analysis, price and closing, sharp, to the point. Train your teams so they are ninjas. Price and closing. That's what I would say. Thank you so much. If you want to have a chat afterwards, we'll all be around.